Protesters in Hong Kong appear to have no plans to stop their actions, even though the government agreed to withdraw the controversial extradition bill. Dozens of demonstrations are being planned for the next few days. Today, Chief Executive Carrie Lam insisted the decision to withdraw the bill was hers alone. She said Beijing understands, respects and supports her. Now for more on this story, Dr. Lim Tai Wei, Adjunct Research Fellow at the East Asian Institute, joins us live from Fukuoka. Tai Wei, great to have you on. The Chief Executive insists it was her government's decision to withdraw the bill. What do you think is Beijing's role in all of this?
I think she has actually clarified the message later on in the press conference when she said that the decision had Beijing's support. And you can also see that the state newspapers in Beijing have also mentioned that now that the extradition bill is withdrawn, there should not be any sort of excuse for the protesters to carry on. So you can see that within these two narratives, it is quite clear that this decision has Beijing's support, although Chief Executive Carrie Lam has mentioned that it was her government's decision to initiate it.
So, Tai Wei, if it was her government's decision to initiate it, why did it take so long for Mrs. Lam to actually withdraw the extradition bill then?
According to her, she said she's been pretty consistent because she announced that the bill was dead. Now, the word dead did not resonate with the protesters because they said that it was not legal language, and that the legal language of withdrawn should be used instead. So after, according to Ms. Carrie Lam, after she has spoken to various groups of people from all over Hong Kong, she has made the decision to use the word withdrawn as a sort of an indication of the permanent end of the extradition bill. From the Beijing's narrative, they call it an olive branch to the protesters. So you have two kind of messages with different nuances here. But basically, the legal language is used, so the bill is now off the table permanently.
Tai Wei, China Daily called the withdrawal an olive branch, but protesters say they want all 5 demands to be met. How long more can we expect this to go on?
Yes, indeed. There are now 5 conditions that the protesters have stated. It appears that the protesters feel that it's too little, too late, because in their narrative there has been suicide, 7 cases of suicide, all of which was based on the suicide from the members of the protesters. And also they said that because a few hundred people have been incarcerated and there has been injuries, and according to them they have suffered some use of force in places like the subway. Therefore they have now more conditions that has to be satisfied. However, it is not known what is the percentage of the protesters that stick to 5 demands, or would some of these protesters be satisfied with the withdrawal? This remains to be seen because the announcement by Carrie Lam was made quite recently. So we need more time to sort of pan out to see if there are a different sort of thinking behind different factions or different groups within the protesters themselves.
Tai Wei, I want to pick up on one of the demands that the protesters have, and that is for the government to agree to an independent investigation into police actions. Why isn't the government agreeing to do this?
Well, I think there are many considerations here. First, I think Ms. Carrie Lam has responded to mainly the withdrawal demand. But she hasn't said anything else about the other conditions. She also has not mentioned that she will resign, which at one point was also a condition by the protesters. So I think the government needs a period of consolidation with different groups of people within Hong Kong. And she has also mentioned that she's going to set up committees to consult with different sectors within Hong Kong society and within different groups of Hong Kongers. So I think it will take time to pan out for some kind of broad-ranging, consensus to be made between different groups and factions in Hong Kong society. Until that consensus is reached, I think it will be difficult for her to make definite, her or her government, to make definite promises on other conditions.
That could face some sort of challenges, though, couldn't it? I mean, the protests are largely leaderless, so we're led to believe. Who would she exactly be speaking with?
Well, she mentions that she's going to speak with all sectors of Hong Kong society. So it's quite likely that she's not just going to speak to protesters, but also other groups that may not be represented by the protesters. So she's going to speak to a wide-ranging kind of spectrum of people in Hong Kong, including people from the private sector, the public sector, NGOs, local communities, etc. So I think she's aiming for some kind of a consensus, rebuild Hong Kong in the post-protest scenario if all are satisfied. So it will take a lot of time because, as you can see, there's a lot of scars that remain from this few months, or what people have called the summer of discontent. So it will take some time for this to pan out. Until that, we shall sort of observe whether she can be able to hold together some kind of broad-ranging consensus for the purpose of healing Hong Kong in any scenarios.
All right, thanks very much for that. Tai Wei speaking to us from Lim Tai Wei speaking to us from Fukuoka.